So today is another episode. I have my friend here, Ariana Sutton. Thank you for coming on to the show. But I think she's the first UX designer, Nomad UX digital designer. Is that your title? Did I miss something?
So digital nomad is a thing, but it's separate from my title. Just UX designer is cool, but a UX designer also a digital nomad. Yeah.
Okay, so let's before we hop into how you got into that, let's go back a little bit to see how we came to this point to where you feel as free as you are, as confident as you are to travel the world and do a really great job at what you do.
Yeah. So taking it back to how far back?
Early childhood.
Okay. Well, I am a military brat. I was born in Louisiana, but lived there for I think 2 months max before we picked up and moved to Seattle, Washington. And then I've just lived all around the states. So I've lived in Texas. I live in Colorado. The last place that I lived when I was in the U.S. is North Carolina, and that's where I also went to school. So even being in North Carolina and being stationary there, we still moved around a lot within the state. So I've always been in a position of having to constantly make new friends or adjust to new environments. And I think when I was younger, it was challenging. It was difficult because you don't ever want to leave your friends behind, but it did instill in me some really good life skills that I still use today, and I think it definitely was the source of my wanderlust and love for travel that I have today as well. So yeah, that's pretty much childhood as it is, and then just being in North Carolina, that's where I went to school and did most of my like teenage years up to adulthood.
So now it makes sense. It makes sense to where you're confident, to where you can just kind of blend into any area that you're in, wherever you're traveling. So where are you currently right now?
Yeah, I'm in Medellin, Colombia.
Okay, and you speak Spanish?
See.
And see, that's about all of the Spanish that I know. But I got to get, I'm just playing. But I'll have you challenge me, as we continue to grow our relationship. But so how did you learn Spanish? Is it a different Spanish from the Spanish you learned in school? And how are the local people treating you as you're traveling throughout the world?
Yeah, so I started taking Spanish when I was really young. I think I want to say like elementary school, middle school, I can't remember which. Partly because we lived in Texas and my mom was really adamant about, you need to speak another language and push for Spanish. And fortunately, I love the language. Like I love how it sounds. It's always been a passion of mine to learn it. So I did study it in school. It was my minor in college, and I also worked part time as a Spanish tutor for beginners. So that helped me too, being able to teach others. It helped reinforce the things that I learned. But when I graduated school, I had the basic conversational skills down and definitely the grammar. But when it came to like actually talking and getting to know people, I would freeze up. I definitely didn't have confidence at all in how I could speak. But I think traveling helped out a lot with that. I would always, on vacations, just talk to Uber drivers or just anyone who would talk to me and, deal with my broken Spanish that I had. And over time, it got a lot better. Like I said, I had all the grammatical parts in my head, but getting it out of your mouth and being conversational on the spot in real life situations is a whole nother thing. So, um, partly educated through the school system, but most of it I think came just on the go and with traveling. And as far as the locals or Spanish speakers and how they treat me, I'd say they're really accepting, very open, more so open. Naturally, I think um, at least all the people I've come across in my travels have been extremely nice. So once I switch to their native tongue, it's a whole nother level of niceness and just acceptance. So it's been good. I've been treated well and well received, even if I'm speaking something not the best way, but just trying has been really well received.
Now, I do want to know, like, since you've been all over the world, are you strategic on like what countries you go to based upon the type of um, the language? Because do you speak multiple languages, or is it just Spanish?
Not yet. I can understand a little bit of Portuguese, and I think I can read Italian. So those are the two I want to work on next. But just Spanish and English fluently right now.
Okay, and like, what are some of the pros and cons of being a nomad designer?
Hmm. Well, definitely a pro. The exposure, being able to work from wherever. As a designer, obviously very creative, and my environment makes a difference on how that creativity can function. So I feel like I've been able to be even more creative, and it's definitely grown my confidence too in designing. That kind of sounds weird, but I I feel like because I've been able to accomplish working from so many different places, it kind of has given that confidence. Like, yeah, you can do whatever challenges come your way, no problem. So yeah, that's a pro. Also, I meet a lot of other, not just designers, but just other nomads that are out here doing whatever. So it's a great way to connect with people. Um, and yeah, oh, another pro would be being able to go where my dollar goes further. So being in Colombia here is one example of that, but a lot of Latin American countries, I've been able to like financially position myself into a better place just from working in a different location. So that's definitely a big pro. And then some cons. Um, as a digital nomad, travel doesn't always go as expected. So a big con would be things like the internet not working when you expect it to, or um, being somewhere and not actually liking it, but kind of being stuck there. I've had that happen before too. Not every country is necessarily work friendly or even a friendly living situation for someone like me. So that would be a con. I think you just never know what to expect when traveling. I said it as a pro too, but it has its cons as well.
So how do you, let's stay there. How do you, when you see that there's a potential negative scenario, right? Maybe the living arrangements or maybe the culture is not what you thought it was. How can you proactively get in front of that?
Whew. I think it's always just good to do your research. If you can find someone else that looks like you, that has visited that destination, just talk to them. I don't think it should ever anyone else's experience should never deter you from going to visit a place because everyone has a different travel experience. But I do think it helps with level setting your own expectations and knowing what you're going to walk into and being able to prepare yourself in that way. But other than that, it's just a matter of rolling with the punches. You just got to go with it. Try to find the silver lining in everything. I know that sounds super cliche, but that's pretty much all you can do if you end up somewhere and it's not working out. Um, is just try to find the positives in what you can and just adjust, roll with the punches.
Now, being a nomad designer, like when it comes to, projects or contracts or permanent positions, are you seeing that there's a difference in pay when they find out that you're a nomad designer?
Um, well, I've only worked for one company since I've been traveling, so not 100% sure, but I have I have been seeking out what's in the job market, and it doesn't seem that way. I think the only difference between being nomadic versus being a designer that's based in the states is that a lot of companies will lean towards putting you on contract work, meaning they don't give you benefits and you're paid by the hour, as opposed to being salaried. But in terms of the pay rate, it's usually about the same. It's all about your level of experience and the skills that you bring when it comes to the amount of money that you're paid for the job.
Gotcha. So with you traveling a lot and frequently, are there specific tools that you like to go to start your designs or the process? Um, of your, your work, or is there a certain type of communication that you would prefer? Like, does Slack work better in Colombia versus Teams? I don't know. Help me understand.
Yeah. Well, the beauty about being a nomad is that anything that works on your computer at home will work on your computer anywhere. So, not too much has changed with the tools I use or the software. If anything, the type of software that I use would depend on the client. So, in the past, I did consulting work, and that would be me working on various projects. So depending on what that client wanted, sometimes they've already built out their product using Sketch, so we would just use Sketch. But I'm comfortable with Figma. I've used the whole Adobe Creative Suite as well, and those are usually the go-tos for me when it comes to design work.
Awesome. That's good to know. That's good to know. Uh, but I do have a question for you. Now, I know you're a designer, right? But do you have to kind of like know the research part too as well? And or are you just strictly a designer?
Yeah. So I think you can choose your path. There is UI designers, which are strictly, I don't want to say strictly, but they focus on visual design. They focus on the interface and what you're looking at. They're into design systems and those sorts of things. While UX is the research side, talking with users, taking their brains and trying to understand um, the root cause of their problems or their needs. I do a bit of both. I started out in UI design because my background is in graphic design. And then over the course of my career, I've built up my experience with user research as well. So I'm a little bit mixed of both, but there are some designers that prefer one or the other, and just strengthen their skills solely in that area.
Now, I seen that there was I was on a webinar not too long ago. It was actually a UX research. I believe that was a name on LinkedIn. So shout out to
Hmm.
you guys. But what I found out is that designers and UX community specifically, when you guys want to really tap in with each other, and you could tell me if I'm wrong or I'm right, that you
Okay.
guys communicate specifically. It was on, I believe it was Slack. I know I was hinting towards it in a different episode. I'm gonna just, throw out all of the information. Now, is that true that Slack is the go-to place to find, specific jobs, or is that how you guys network?
Mm, yeah, Slack is really good for networking. There's a lot of different Slack communities. A lot of companies will drop like any job openings and things that they have there. Yeah, I never thought about it like that. I've always used Slack and Teams. Teams though was mainly for my company. So usually when you're working for a company, you're in Teams unless it's like startups and different things like that. Smaller companies like to just use Slack. So it just depends. But yeah, I would agree with that statement that it's a good place to network, and definitely connect with other designers, especially on a more global scale. Because you won't just be meeting designers from the particular country that you're in, but you can connect with designers all over the world.
Now, what about the job boards? Do you have a specific job boards? I know you were with your employer for a period of time, but are there specific
Hmm.
job boards that you look to get like freelancing work, and how's that been going for you?
That's a good question. So this time around, uh, at this stage in my career, I don't even mess with the job boards anymore. I feel like it's almost a waste of my time because you just apply to so many different places and sometimes it doesn't even get seen. My go-to is LinkedIn. So what I'll do is if I see a company with an opening that I'm interested in, I will look up that company and see who, like the people that work there. If I see any UX designers, if I see any talent researcher or talent recruiters, anything of that nature, I'll try to connect with them and create some sort of relationship that way before applying, because it just seems to have a better outcome than doing the cold call emails or cold call applications. But they're all the job boards out there. I feel like they're kind of the same. I don't feel like one is necessarily better than the other. You can use one and get the same results that you would use on another. It doesn't hurt to look on those, but I do think if you find something, it's good to take it to that next level and connect with someone in some way that you can, because really the industry is all about, it's about who you know. Like your skill set matters, but it's a lot about who you know.
I will say it's probably 90%. to 95%
Yeah.
of who you know. It's never like you said, like you just fill out the application. That's good, but then I would reach out to my contact at that establishment that you fostered that relationship with. Like, hey, I just filled out for this position. What do you think? And have that build that
Mhm.
rapport over time. So give me a funny story about your because I watched your YouTube. Shout out to your YouTube. Shout out to your vlog with the family. Love it. I love everything about it. Definitely gotta at the end definitely share that where people can find you. But give us a funny story about traveling.
Oh gosh, a funny story. That's like there's so many I don't even know. I can tell you about one that just popped in my head when you said that. Um, it was actually here in Medellin. We went out one night and we ended up. It was a gas station. I can't remember. We were looking for snacks or drinks or something, and we walk in like midnight, and this man is just walking around with this big rooster under his arm. We were like, that's the type of stuff you just see in Colombia any given day. So we go up to him and like his rooster is like his pet. Like he's like, yeah, this is Coco. We're like, oh my god, Coco. And we have like pictures with him and the rooster, and it was just a very memorable moment and something that really stood out to me. Like this would not happen anywhere in the states. At least nowhere where I've been, where you just walk into a grocery store and see someone with a live rooster.
Now, so what's the end game? Do you want to always travel, right? Or do you want to come back stateside and get into more? I don't know. Do you want to grow professionally at a big company, or do you want to stay more agile, if you will, with agency work and things of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to look, it's hard to go back after having this amount of freedom. So I don't have any urge to go back to the States, especially since I've lived in so many of them. Like I can say across the whole country, I'm good. Obviously, my family though is still there, and they always want me to come back. So there may be a point in time where I'm back momentarily, but I don't ever plan on it being like a permanent move for me. And as far as like work goes, I would love to eventually just be working for myself or have enough passive income streams lined up where I don't have to work. That would be ideal. Or if I do, I should say not so much not have to work, but I can wake up every day and decide what I want to do and it not affect my livelihood. Um, so yeah, I think I would for the near future. I try not to plan my life too far ahead because it's hard, but near future, the next 4 or 5 years, I definitely see myself still doing what I'm doing now. A lot more slower traveling. So before I was doing like 3 weeks to a couple months at a time in different places. But now I'm looking to be stationary here in Medellin for another year. And then after that, I might look at Portugal and their digital nomad visa and maybe some other places in Europe. I don't know. We'll see where the wind takes me. But I do still want to travel just at a slower pace. And I want to keep doing either contracts or working with agencies as long as it's flexible. Because obviously, I'm not going to go into an office. I don't want anyone having control over where I'm working from.
Okay, and as we're landing this plane, what is one word you can describe yourself on your journey as a nomad designer?
One word that I would use to describe myself as a nomad designer. I guess adaptable is the only word that comes to mind. You just have to pivot. Like life in itself is full of surprises, but add traveling to that on a frequent basis, and yeah, you have to learn how to pivot and adapt and just go with the flow of anything that it throws at you. And I think that's where I've seen in myself that I've changed the most since I've started traveling. Is like I used to I'm type A, so I was, very particular about certain things, and I've had to learn to just kind of let that go and just roll with it. And there's always an alternative, I think, is a good way to look at it. Like if something doesn't work out one way or the way that you thought it would, there's always an alternative solution or another way to go about doing things.
Love it. And then where can people find you on social media?
Ariventuras, Ariventuras. You can find that across all social media networks, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
Well, there you guys have it. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment below, and let her know about her YouTube channel because I'll link it. I'll put it in the show notes, and I want you guys to engage on her content. She's doing it takes a lot. It takes a lot to work and then also have a YouTube channel as well. I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just in stages, but hopefully I'll have a team to help facilitate some of these things. But thank you again for coming on. I look forward to part 2 to see where you end up next and
Okay.
how you're going to progress in your career.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.